So today I want, before I jump into where we go next, I'd like to share with you where I came from. I am American by nationality, but I'm Indian by birth. So I'm just tapping into my Indian heritage today, and I want to introduce you also to an amazing artist. She's a feminist artist, she's Pakistani, Canadian, and she does this amazing art. So the beautiful artwork you see is her, it's Maria Kumar, and she goes by Hit Copy, so please show her some love. So Bollywood-style drama, that's the journey I've been on. And we'll talk about 4 births, 2 deaths, and 1 election. So I was an accidental baby. My parents were dirt poor, and they had 3 kids, and they couldn't afford 1 more. So I was born in a small suburb of India. And my parents didn't have a lot of, they had great ambitions for my older brothers. They had none. For myself and my older sister, even though they were mediocre students, and we were pretty good, actually. But, so we didn't have a lot of life goals. My parents didn't have grand ambitions for me or my sister, but a lot of ambitions for my brothers. But for us, it was pretty much get married, be a homemaker, be a good housewife, really, birth an heir and a spare. So let's see how I did. So I did get married, but I'm divorced. So check that off. Be a homemaker. I am the first person, thanks to generosity of strangers, scholarships, part-time jobs, I was able to go to graduate school. I'm the first person in my family to have a graduate degree. So that's out. So I also have a viable career so far. So how do you think I did on the 3rd one? Any guesses? Okay, so who says you can't have it all? I went to graduate school, I was pregnant. So I had the baby and a degree at the same time. And my child, my baby daughter, came out about 5 years back as transgender. So my darling child is self-identifies as non-binary. So I landed in Silicon Valley in the 2000s, and that was the wild, wild west. So many companies we think of, the tech giants, were just getting started. Believe it or not, nobody cared about Facebook. He was just this young kid, and none of the big boys actually wanted to play with him, but that explains a lot, right? So, so I started at eBay, and I started as a tech blogger. I was one of the few tech bloggers in the Valley. And I also organized a lot of emerging tech meetups because everybody's trying to figure out the landscape is changing, what's going on, what's this thing called social. We were the cool kids, we used to blog. So blogging was really things that cool kids did, and nobody cared about social media. So as people are trying to figure this out, I run this meetup groups, helping people figure that out, having all these discussions, but then I joined the corporate world. So I worked for most of these companies. I started with eBay, ended with Google. And you get a lot of advice, well-meaning advice, when you join the tech world. And in hindsight, you realize why the industry is a mess, right? So one of the first pieces of advice I got was just run fast as you can, break things, right? And my first manager told me, don't ask for permission. Just do it, Mia. Just go for it. And the last piece of advice before I left the tech world was this. Chill, okay? Take it easy. It's not like we're saving babies. And this I have heard throughout my career in technology over nearly 2 decades. And it was very problematic because this was a point in my life when this was about 5 years back, I just lost my mom. And my daughter was at high risk for self-harm. So I couldn't understand why, with the best technology, the best, smartest people on the planet in Silicon Valley, why aren't we solving these problems? So that was my winter of disillusionment with the tech world. So, birth number 2. Like I said, this is going to have a lot of drama, Bollywood style. I did warn you. So Lighthouse 3 is, I like the idea, the name, as being this beacon for lost souls at sea, right? Tormented waters and such. And I just continued doing what I was doing, helping technology companies adopt new technologies, but doing it in a responsible way. And one thing I realized was, outside of the technology world, which is a bubble unto itself, people actually care about regulation. Other industries are way more regulated than technology world is. So here's Wild Wild West, and here are the adults. So I doubled down on my work on compliance, governance. I also focused more on ethics. It was life-changing, and also worked harder at organizing my events and just working more on doing things the right way. So something else happened. So the election came along. In 2016 election, I don't know how many of you followed the US election. It was, if you hadn't heard about it then, you're hearing about it now. So everything changed at that point because it was a jarring realization, and this, you couldn't ignore this anymore, that rights that we took for granted for women were up for grabs. I thought equal pay would be a no-brainer, right? How could that possibly be controversial? Why shouldn't women get paid the same? And yet it became this political hot potato, and it's still not resolved yet. This is 2019. So I decided to start my own little revolution. I have my own agenda, and I'm going with women first agenda. I'm biased, yes, clearly. So all the meetup groups that are hired, these are not women-only meetup groups. They're open to everybody, but after the election, everything changed. I made my meetup groups more either one women-focused, but I made sure that we would always seek out women speakers first. And if there wasn't a qualified woman, we would fill it with a token white male. No, just kidding. But really, that's exactly what we do, and that's exactly what we did. Because we've been doing that, right, for years and years, and we never even questioned that. And even today, there's always like one person, one woman on a panel, and we think it's a victory. It isn't. A tokenization of women has to stop, and this is the way we are dealing with it. I see Rosie in the back, and I want to call her out. Rosie Campbell is with Partnership for AI. She's also my co-conspirator for one of my AI meetup groups. And she did this amazing presentations on DNN, which is a deep neural nets, which is a very complex topic, and she did it with kittens. So her presentation was all with kittens, and she has bright pink hair, and there were pink accents all over her presentation. It was brilliant. People came up after, and this was a room full of men, right? And they came up and said, oh my gosh, this is the best presentation we've ever seen, and people were lining up to meet her. So we have amazing talent. It's just a matter of being more intentional, of going out and seeking out that talent. It's not lack of representation. It's really lack of recognition. So we didn't stop there. So I run Twitter chats once a month. And again, this is not women only, right? We're just flipping the norm. We've never questioned why a panel is all male. We've never questioned why everything is dominated by men. So I'm just making women the norm. And if you find a qualified male, he's always welcome. But a lot of work in AI ethics is being done by women. And they're brilliant at that, so why wouldn't we? Books. So I see Safiya is still in the room, and I want to say this. We do book chats every month, and that list is growing, and these are all women authors. And they are out there, even though we always consider men to be more credible. But I do not engage with anyone on the subject of AI ethics until they've read one of these books. And you should do the same. Because it's not a meaningful conversation unless you start actually reading the work that is women, because it's out there. And these are not Luddites, although I take offense with that word being used negatively. These are very well-informed women, and they have deep subject matter expertise, and they know what they're talking about. So next time somebody questions you or questions the ethics of AI, why do we make such a big deal? Ask them to go read a book first. I firmly believe that unreasonable women are going to change the world. They have done it in the past, and they are the ones who are going to save us and save humanity. Okay, some more drama in my life. It was last year, my dad passed away. It was sudden. So as traditional as my dad was, he was also progressive. So he would cook lunch. He would cook breakfast for us kids. He didn't want anybody to go to school hungry, and my mom was sick, so she couldn't do a lot. So he would paint my nails when I was younger, and I don't know a lot of men who do that even today. And this is the 70s. So when he died, I was devastated. So I did what any normal person would do. I opened a bottle of wine. And I went on Twitter. Yeah. I know, nothing good can come out of this, right? What was I thinking? So I go on Twitter. And does everybody here know what a subtweet is? Okay, so I was being subtweeted. And the 100 list wasn't my first rodeo. I had published a list. I published a list of 12 women in AI ethics. And the discussion was, this list is obviously biased. It's biased in favor of North America. Granted, it's 12 women. So there was some bias. So I said, okay, I'm halfway through my bottle of wine. What else do I have to do? So, okay, let me see what else is out there. How many more could there possibly be? And I went like 20, 25, 30. And at this point, the wine is gone. And I keep going and going. It became an obsession because there were so many amazing women out there doing some incredible work. And finally, at 100, I had to stop. I had to publish this. I put it out there. So here's the list. Thank you so much. And what's been amazing about this, about the women who are working in this space, is it's not all social scientists, it's not just all social or data scientists or engineers. It's a mix of women working from, coming from different dimensions. There are lawyers. There are women who work for not-for-profits, they work for corporations, and there's such a beautiful mix of diverse experiences and backgrounds that really adds to the richness, as you can tell by the women you're surrounded with today. So that was our birth limit 3. And the support was so overwhelming. Oh my God, it was amazing. And I have to say, in some ways, the list saved me because it gave me so much hope in a very, very dark world, in a very dark place. But the love that I got from the community was outstanding. Joy took all the names and put them in individual tweets so people could follow each other. Women shared their own stories because they were feeling, let's just address the elephant in the room, right? Ethics is not sexy. You're asking people to slow down. It is not welcome. Nobody is going to give you credit for that. It's a hard journey. And there's so many women doing the hard work, which is why they deserve recognition. So when they came out with their stories, it felt like validation that I was doing the right thing. I don't know how many of you know Joanna. I haven't met her in person, but she shared her story about how people keep saying there are no women out there. And she's like, do they think I'm a man? Seriously? There are women. There are hundreds of women. Carla, she's in Germany, and they started their own list for German women. And people recognize this was not a one-and-done deal. We still have ways to go, but it was just the beginning. It was just the start. And Allies, Partnership for AI, the co-founder, also tweeted this out as a resource. So all the support was amazing. And then Kathy Baxter over Salesforce, they hosted the first Women in AI conference. If you don't know Kathy, she's an amazing individual. You should get to know her. Along with Daniel Cass, they hosted the first Women in AI Ethics Summit at Salesforce. And then last month, Microsoft hosted a precursor to this event in Bay Area because there are a lot of women who couldn't make it out here. So we wanted to do something for them, and it was so amazingly well received. And I do want to share one story here because I know there was a little baby in the back. One of our allies reached out and said he couldn't find childcare, so would it be okay if he brought his daughter? And I said, of course you can, because all our events are inclusive, are children inclusive, and they're very inclusive of working parents. Because we need to stop talking the talk and make it more easier for working parents to actually be at these events. So his daughter came, and after that, he wrote me a sweet note saying that My daughter felt so included, and it was so wonderful because she may be here sitting with you someday. Which brings me to today's event. What an incredible gathering, and what incredible organization. So I'm so grateful to Caroline and Marina for putting this together. And I'd like to pause a second and just to call out a couple of things. One, this is the first time I've shared my journey anywhere with anyone, because it is hard to do without wine. Thank you so much. And there's this toxic practice of excluding women or erasing women from conversations. There is a practice where we appropriate women's work and not give them credit. And we've seen, we don't have a problem with representation. There are a lot of women. It's are we recognizing their work? And it would have been just as easy for folks at Orbit to just say, okay, whatever, it's a simple list, it's a brown woman in California, should we really care about this work? And yet, I feel it speaks volumes to their leadership and their commitment to inclusion and their ethics for including me, and they are the reason I'm standing in front of you today. So I'm so, so grateful to you. And ethics is easy, right? It's not easy work, but we talk about ethics a lot to a point it gets overused. But when it comes down to it, ethics being ethical is really about doing the right thing, even when you have the power, privilege, and the status to get away with doing the unethical things. And I feel that is a moral crisis of the 21st century, and I hope more people take your lead and follow your lead to make this a truly inclusive environment. So what's next? This is what you all been waiting for. So last night was the first time I slept more than 5 hours, because I've been birthing my latest baby. The 100 list is now an online directory, and we'll be launching later this month, but you are welcome to sign up for the beta. But what it allows us to do, as you know, as soon as I published the list of 100, it was outdated, right? I got emails and messages like, you missed this one, you missed them, and what were you thinking? I was like, yes, I know, I had to stop. But now we don't need to. We can keep this list growing. We can invite more women into our communities. And this is also going to be available. We've added 2 filters. You can now filter based on your area of expertise, and you can find women in your location. You can also filter by location. So those are 2 brilliant ways that we can start building this community, move this conversation forward, and also network with women within their communities. So the framework we've used is 6-dimensional. And we picked this based on the work women are already doing. And these are not exclusive categories. We just wanted to call out that when you work on ethical design, that even an ethically designed system, AI system, can still have unethical consequences. So we do want to connect the dots between women who are working on the ethics of technology, but not to lose sight of people who are going to lose their jobs. And I'm so glad that it was called out in the previous session, which was brilliant, that we have to make sure human beings survive this transition. I grew up dirt poor, and believe me, it's not easy to survive that. For ones who have the privilege, will be just fine. We have to look out for folks who are going to be displaced, because they live check to check, like paycheck to paycheck. And even I live in the Silicon Valley, and it's one of the most, has the most, one billionaire per 12,000 people in San Francisco, and yet it has the highest homelessness. So we can do better, we need to do better. So I just want to share how we are planning to move this forward. These are these amazing women who have offered and who will be working on moving this conversation forward and curating each one of these dimensions. Julie Carpenter, some of you might already know, she is at, I believe, at Accenture, and she works on roles and rights. Hesse Jones is very active in privacy data rights. That's me. But society and sustainability are the 2 I wanted to call out. Dorothea Bauer just did a Twitter chat with us, and the focus was sustainability. And we did talk about the carbon footprint, and I love when Marina mentioned this. That's exactly it. We will be focused on that, and she'll make sure we invite more voices. Amy Shu is with AI for All, and this is something I think Beben might be interested in, because this is an organization which is developing the next generation pipeline and making sure the diverse children and young adults from the youth from marginalized groups, marginalized communities, have access to training and education. Fairness and accountability, another key area that Natalia will be focused on, and some of you may already know Anya Kaspersen, and she's with the UN. There's a huge focus on stopping the development, or at least slowing down the development of autonomous weaponry. So amazing women. And if you would like to be part of this, and you'd like to be part of the council and help move this forward, you're welcome to. 100 Women in Ethics, we will continue to publish this list every year. So that's coming this fall. It will be curated not by women on the list, just for fairness sake. I'm not on the list, by the way, in case you haven't noticed. Because I wanted to free up a space. I want to free up space for another deserving woman. And Zanun Nassar is the head of D&I at Google, and she is also the organizer of Women for Good, so she will be on the council. Pablo Stanley is the one, I have all this beautiful artwork by him. He's a feminist. He's also the founder of Latinx in AI. He does a lot of work for diversity in AI, so he's a big ally, and we're growing this list. So only caveat is, if you're on this council, you cannot be on the 100 list. So if you don't mind that, you're welcome to join the council as well. Okay. I know I'm over time. This is last but not the least. This is Be Quoted. We find that men are assigned more credibility because they have, no offense to the men in the room, but they drop their opinion as wisdom, and people believe it, and they're very believable. Women, not as much, because they are not quoted as much. So we are compiling a list of all the quotes from women in an ebook for two reasons. One is to amplify your voice, but please take those quotes and use them in your own presentations. You all have your own platforms, you all have your own power. You can go out and also amplify more women, so we get taken more seriously. It is really a movement. It's like, and one person can't do it all alone. But together, I know we can make a difference. And that was about it. All I can say is thank you again so much for everything that you do, and thank you for having me here, and thank you for sharing your powers, your superpowers with the world.